Let's go on. Let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter number 7. So what we've been talking about, I was already in 1 Corinthians. So what we've been talking about is purpose. We've been talking about living for something greater. I want you to know that once you've been through all of that suffering, you've been through all of that chaos, listen, don't allow the enemy to use that against you. But what you do is you take that and you use that against the enemy. You let the devil know tonight that I realized that there was purpose in my suffering. Let the devil know tonight that I realized that there was a reason God allowed those things to happen in my life. And because of those things, I'm going to turn them around. I like what my pastor says. My pastor says, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to allow God to use me for his glory in light of it. Now that you've been through that suffering and I gave you some understanding today about why it was allowed and why it happened and how you got through it, now I want you to take that understanding and I want you to turn it around and live for something greater. Oh, let the Lord use you. Let him use you as a minister. Do you not know that you don't have to be behind the pulpit? You don't have to be in front of people and in front of lights and camera to be a minister of righteousness. To be an angel of hope for somebody. God can use you right where you are. He can use you in your neighborhood. He can use you on your block. He can use you on your job. He can use you in the workplace. He can use you as you're riding the bus, as you're on the train. God can use you. All you have to do is be a willing vessel and be willing to speak to somebody and tell them about the love of Jesus Christ, to speak to somebody and tell them that they can make it, to speak to somebody and tell them that there is hope. I feel compelled right now to tell you that there is hope for you. Oh, yes, that's right. There's hope for you. I don't care what you feel like right now. I don't care what happened today, yesterday, or on this week. I want you to know that as long as Jesus is alive, there is hope for you. Yes, my friend, there is hope for you. You can be saved, you can be delivered, and you can be set free. Let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter number 7. And let's look in verse number 20. Now, this is important. I want you to live for purpose. Don't just live for today. Don't just live for the moment, but live for purpose. Live for destiny. What does that mean, Pastor? That means that I have to understand that whatever happens over the course of the day, it's not just about that situation. It's not just about that issue. It's not just about that trial. It's not just about that test. It's about the fact that on the other side of that test, great things are in store for me. It's about that on the other side of that test is a soul. Oh, help me, Holy Ghost. There's a soul on the other side of your test, somebody that can be won to Christ, somebody that can be charged, somebody that can be raised up, somebody that can be ministered to because you made it through your trial, because you made it through your test. Listen, look at this, verse number 20. Let every man abide in the same calling wherein he was called. So why do I want to say that to you today? Let every man abide in the same calling wherein he was called. Because once you learn and you figure out and you get a glimpse and God gives you a glimpse of what your purpose is and he tells you that he wants to use you, and listen, you're accountable now because you're watching this telecast, and he tells you that he wants to use you to be a blessing to someone else, to minister to somebody else. Once you get a glimpse of that, once you know that, then you're accountable for it. And God says now everything that you do needs to line up with that calling. That's heavy. Everything that I do needs to line up with that calling. Now, listen, now I don't just get a job and get any job. Now I don't just declare a major because I think that's a good major or a good field for me to go into. Now God says, let everything you do line up with that calling. He says, and if it doesn't line up, get it out of the way, move it out of the way. Listen, now he says, every relationship that you're in, if you're in a relationship, if you're watching me today and you're in a relationship that's not fruitful, it's not bearing any fruit, you can't see any purpose behind it, you can't see where that's going to contribute to your ministry or contribute to your purpose, you need to get rid of that relationship. You need to get out of it. Oh, I'm being so serious right now. You need to understand that if there's somebody that's in your life and they're not contributing to the purpose that God has for you, you better understand something. If they're not contributing to it, they're subtracting from it. They're detracting from that purpose. They're moving you further away from that call. Listen, don't let anybody get you out of the calling of God. Don't let anybody run you out of your church. Don't let anybody run you away from your ministry. Don't let anybody run you away from salvation. if there's somebody that's keeping you from getting closer to God, let me tell you something. You need to let that person go. You need to let that relationship go. You need to let that individual go. And you need to understand God has a purpose for me. He's got a destiny for me. He's called me. He's chosen me. And so now everything I do has to line up with that purpose. I understand it. And I don't want you to have to learn the hard way. Sometimes we have to learn the hard way, and God has to literally remove people from us. I don't want you to have to learn the hard way. Why don't you do it? Why don't you make the step? Why don't you make the choice to say, you know what? I've been shacking up with this person for too long. I've been in this situation for too long. I've been giving this person attention and giving them love and giving them affection and not receiving anything in return for far too long. Enough is enough. I'm drawing the line. And you say, what does that have to do with that text? Because he said, abide in the calling wherein you are called. You know God called you. You know God chose you. You know God is calling you out. He's calling you out from among them to be separate. He wants to work through you and in you. He says, so now let's move away all the props. Let's get all of the distractions out of the way. And let's really walk in this calling. Let's walk in this purpose. I'm going to get a little more into that. I'm going to get a little more into that in this text. Listen, pick up your phone. Don't wait. Don't delay. Call me right now, 773-495-6393. You need prayer. You need deliverance. You need a word from God. I'm taking your calls. Call me right now, 773-495-6393. Let's go to Luke, the 13th chapter. Let's look here at verse number 6. Luke 13 and verse number 6 is where I'm going to begin. Jesus spake also this parable. Look at it. He says, a certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon and found none. Then said he unto the dresser of his vineyard, the person who was responsible for it, behold, this 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree and find none. Cut it down and cumbereth it the ground. Why cumbereth it the ground? And he answering said unto him, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about it and dung it. He wants, give me a little more time so that I can fix it up, so that I can try to fix the situation. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that, thou shalt cut it down. Now listen, what do I want to talk about here? When he says about this fig tree, he gives this parable about the fig tree. Now listen, you know, if you, I don't know much about gardening, but I know that if you plant a certain kind of seed, if you plant a certain kind of crop, then that's the kind of fruit that you expect. And definitely you expect that after you plant and after the water comes down and after that plant takes root, that you expect that it should grow and you expect that it should bear fruit or bear the vegetable that you planted, the kind of seed that you planted. Jesus said he comes to this fig tree, and this fig tree has been here for 3 years and has borne no fruit. He says, why cumbereth it the ground? In other words, why are you taking up space? So what am I saying to you? I'm saying if you're going to be in the kingdom, if you're going to be in God, then you should be bearing fruit. You should be working. You should be busy about ministry. You need to be doing something. If you've been saved for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and you've never won a soul to Christ, you've never told anybody about the love of Jesus Christ, nobody's name is in the kingdom under your name, let me tell you something. You're taking up space. If you, I heard a saying, says that service is the price we pay for the space we have here on earth. Service, the price we pay for the space we have here on earth. Service, you should be serving. You should be doing good. God should be able to work through you. He should be able to use you. You're old enough now. You're watching me. You're old enough now that God should be able to use you. You've been around long enough now that we should be able to get some fruit out of you. Somebody should be better because of you. Listen, you didn't go through all of that for naught. Why are you going to waste those experiences? Turn around and be a blessing to somebody. Turn around and minister to somebody. Turn around and encourage somebody. Somebody needs to hear your voice. There's something on the inside of you that God wants to use. There's something on the inside of you that can be a blessing to somebody. And I know you're looking at me right now and you're saying, Pastor, in me, I don't feel like there's anything in me that can be used. Yes, there is. There's purpose on the inside of you.